Well, let's speak to Laura Blumenfeld, who's a Middle East analyst and a former senior advisor on the Israel-Palestine negotiating team at the US State Department. Laura Blumenfeld, thank you very much for talking to us from Washington. What are your thoughts on this, the third night of Israel strikes on Iran?
Well, I think there's one big question that hangs over us, whether Israel is just stirring up the hornet's nest or they're going to kill the queen. How far does Netanyahu want to go before he can claim success? And there's some, hard, bloody lessons to be learned from Gaza, where he declared at the beginning that they're looking for total victory over Hamas in Gaza. And that's led to a 20-month slog. If he can go for a limited strike, which is what he's talking about, he's used the words rolling back Iran's nuclear program. He didn't say completely eliminating it. And I think that what you're looking at today is Israel's Iran deal. This is Israel's version of the Iran deal. Bloody them and then get them back to the bargaining table. If it's the United States, that has not succeeded. Israel was the only one who took Donald Trump literally with that 60-day deadline for negotiations. Israel's the equivalent of dragging them back into the back room, softening them up, and then hopefully they'll go back to the table. I think it's really interesting if you look at what's happening today in Washington versus what's happening in the Middle East. Today, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, are claiming full operational freedom over the skies of Tehran, where in Washington we're watching a military parade.
And what you say about the duration potentially of this, so you don't necessarily think this could go on for months or at least weeks. Do you think this could be time limited to some extent? And ironically, there were supposed to be talks about Iran's nuclear program in Oman on Sunday. Those are now cancelled.
Right, and there's been real mixed messaging. It's kind of a wink-wink war from Washington's point of view, where, did Israel have cooperation, have a green light from the United States? I think we'll know that only later on. But I think in the best case scenario from Israel and the United States point of view is that there are limited strikes back and forth now until Israel feels like they've accomplished enough to bring Iran to a point where they'd be willing to make negotiations and concessions for no enrichment. That was the red line that the United States set. And I think that would be a red line that Israel could accept.
What do you make of the whole premise of these attacks, that Iran, in Israel's words, was months away from producing a nuclear bomb and that it would ultimately be used against Israel?
Well, that's what Israel believes. And look, this is not a war from their point of view that started on June 13th, just yesterday. In fact, it feels like much longer than that. It started on October 7th. They describe Iran and their proxies as an octopus with arms. So Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, those are just the arms, the tentacles that are trying to strangle Israel. But the head of the octopus is Tehran. So yes, they're holding out this idea of regime change as the ultimate threat over the Iranians. I think it's no coincidence that the name of this operation is Operation Rising Lion. So it's a biblical reference to the Lion of Judah from the book of Numbers. But it's also the lion from the Iranian flag, which flew over Iran from Tehran across the country before the Shah was deposed. So I think that there's also a sense of rise up and take back your country.
Your time at the State Department presumably looked at this potential scenario. It was always a possibility. What changed?
Well, look, it's always been a kind of doomsday scenario. It's been 30 years in the making, this showdown. I think several things happened. First of all, the proxies, the life insurance policy for Iran are out. That would be, Hezbollah has been defanged. And then the defenses for the air defenses around Tehran are down. So it's a once in a kind of lifetime opportunity for Israel to strike. And finally, nuclear enrichment is up. Israel felt like they had this very narrow window. If they didn't take it now, they would regret it forever. I think Israel's attitude is, United States and the world, you'll thank us later. We bombed over your objections. We bombed Iraq's nuclear facilities in 1981. We bombed Syria's nuclear program in 2007. You object now, but later on you'll be applauding. Trump may not like wars, but he does like winning.
Laura Blumenfeld, thank you very much for joining us from Washington, Middle East analyst, formerly at the US State Department.
Thank you.